Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at this rifle here, which is the FX Impact. I've been shooting this rifle for a few months now and getting used to it, and it's really become one of my favorite rifles to use. It's kind of become a go-to for me for whatever I want to do, whether that's target shooting, varmint shooting, pest control, hunting, just about anything. This rifle can do it, and it does it extremely well. So today I'm going to be going over a few of its highlights, reasons why this rifle would be a great option for you if you're looking for an upper end PCP air rifle, and I'll be giving you some information as well if you're looking to get into PCPs for the first time. So this rifle comes in at 7 pounds from the factory and 36 inches. As a bullpup model, this rifle packs in all of the functionality of a short gun, but also has all the capabilities of your traditional long gun. The barrel is 24 inches, and it's actually interchangeable, so you can go from a .177 caliber all the way up to a .30 caliber with this gun. This is one of the most adjustable rifles that I've ever seen as far as power adjustments, tuning for velocities, types of pellets that you can shoot, and just overall fine tuning to get exactly what you want. So there's 3 ways to adjust the power on this rifle. The first one is here. This is the power wheel, and I have mine set on max. I'll go over my settings in a little bit so you guys can get an idea of what I like to shoot with my gun. But keep in mind that every FX Impact is going to have slightly different settings in order to get the optimum accuracy out of it. So these are the settings that I've found to shoot the best out of this gun in particular, but you may have to do a little bit of fine tuning. So as I said, you have the power adjustment here, and then you also have here the actual hammer spring tension adjuster. This will adjust how much pressure the hammer actually puts on the valve when it hits. Then finally, you have your adjustable regulator right here. Now I keep mine set at 140 bar, which is standard factory settings, but you actually can go in and adjust this. It's just a little bit more of a lengthy process. And I've played with it a little bit, but I actually have found that 140 bar seems to be the optimum regulator pressure for what I want to do with my gun. Let's say you wanted to shoot with your .177 barrel on, you might want to adjust your regulator pressure down a little bit further to get optimum amount of shots. You know, maybe you want to adjust it down to 100 bar or 90 bar even, I guess. That's pretty darn low. But you could adjust it all the way down there and you would be getting extreme shot spreads. I mean, I've heard of people getting 720 shots off of one bottle fill with a .177 caliber gun down at sub 12 foot-pound energy levels, which is just incredible. I have mine with the 25 caliber barrel on because I've been shooting a lot of prairie dogs and rabbits and birds and stuff like that. So I want to make sure I have that knockdown power, and with this 25 caliber barrel, with the settings that I have, I'm getting 51 foot-pounds of energy out of this gun. And that's plenty for even taking coyotes if I wanted to. Coyotes, foxes, bobcats, things of that sort. So getting back into the specs of this gun, it has a 480cc bottle, carbon fiber bottle, which actually has its own valve system built in, so you can actually take this bottle and unscrew it from the gun without depressurizing the gun. It has this awesome side lever action right here, 16 shot magazine in 25 caliber, and here you have your pressure gauge, which is in bar, not PSI. Same down here with your regulator gauge. My personally favorite aspect of this gun is the trigger system. Traditionally on a bullpup rifle, the trigger assembly has a lot of creep in it. You go to pull the trigger and you can feel all of the grit that's right against the trigger sear as it's slipping. On the FX Impact, that is not the case because the team over at FX in Sweden took special care and consideration in designing this trigger system. It's an extremely crisp 2-stage trigger, and personally I prefer a 1-stage trigger better, and it's adjustable, fully adjustable both stages. So I just take the length of the first stage and back it down to where it's almost non-existent. That way my trigger is extremely crisp. It's very light. I think I have mine set to right around 10 ounces, which I like a light trigger on my rifles. I'm not a fan of a heavy trigger, and I find that that helps me a lot with my accuracy as well. We have an AR style safety here, AR style pistol grip, which is fully exchangeable. If you wanted to, you could throw on your standard mag pull grip, customized. We have a fully shrouded 24-inch barrel with the moderator. This moderator actually unscrews and comes off, and the moderator's length is adjustable. Each one of these segments can be taken out to lengthen or shorten the moderator, and that will affect your muzzle report as well. The gun comes standard with a Picatinny rail on top, a Picatinny rail on either side here, and a Picatinny rail here on the bottom, which I have my green blob mounted bipod here, which I really like. I think that's a great substitute for an Atlas bipod, which comes at almost $300, which I think is crazy for a bipod. But I bought this one for I think 65 bucks, and it's done an absolutely fantastic job for me. Finally, a couple of other little specs on the gun. It has a fully adjustable butt pad here, slides up and down. And getting into some of the more detailed portions of it, the barrel comes out right here. You'd simply unscrew this set screw right here and unscrew the barrel itself. It slides off and you can exchange your barrels. You would exchange your probe, your pellet probe, back here with a small set screw, and there's a few YouTube tutorials that can walk you through that. The barrel kits come in at $440 a piece from Air Guns of Arizona, and like I said, you can go from a 177 barrel all the way up to a 30 caliber barrel. The rifle itself comes in at $1,899, so it is quite an investment if you're looking to get into the PCP market. A rifle like this I would not recommend for someone who is just getting started with PCP air rifles. I feel that it's a great idea to start off with a lower end model such as a Benjamin Marauder. That was my first PCP air rifle, and it really taught me how to fine-tune a rifle, how to shoot correctly, and to learn the benefits and the drawbacks of a PCP compared to a Springer or a CO2 air rifle, which with PCPs I have to say there are far more pros than there are cons. For one being the extreme shot count that you can get from a gun like this with a big bottle on it, the reduced muzzle report, the reduced recoil, the increased accuracy. Another thing I forgot to mention is that this gun comes standard with the FX smooth twist barrel, which smooth twist is something that FX came up with where the majority of their barrel is actually a smooth bore, and then the last few inches are rifled, which gives that pellet a nice smooth steady twist to stabilize it in its flight, but will not over stabilize it so as to cause that spin drift that you would get from a traditional bullet, because pellets are much easier to over stabilize than a bullet is. I have here on my gun a Hawk Sidewinder 30 tactical scope. It's a 6.5 to 20 magnification with a 44mm objective. It has a 30mm tube, turrets on here. I really like the reticle in this scope. It's an illuminated reticle. It has hash marks for each half mil dot and then mil dots for each mil, and I believe it has 7 mil dots in each direction. I really like the way that it's set up. It's very easy to use, and it really helps with your holdover values. If you want to shoot with your turrets, that's completely doable. Dial up your range, or you can hold for mil dots. I personally like to hold for mils, just because I don't like messing with my turrets. Even though these turrets, I've done a tracking test on them and they track just fine. I haven't had any issues with that. Personally, I don't like to move my settings around at all. Once I get the scope zeroed, I like to just shoot it with my holdover values. The gun fills with a standard quick disconnect Foster fitting right here, right below in front of the trigger assembly. And it fills to 250 bar, which most guns standard only fill to about 200 bar. So on to the settings of my rifle. I have mine set to shoot a JSB Exact Heavy 33.95 grain pellet at 865 feet per second. That's the velocity that I have found to get the most accuracy out of, and it has allowed me to get my optimum shot spread. So I'm getting right around 90 to 100 shots before I have to fill this gun up again, right before it gets to its 140 bar mark where it meets the regulator pressure. I backed out the hammer spring tension right here. I backed that out about 2 marks. It has this little knob right here, and I backed it out from that second big line out, and that gave me a little bit more power there. And then I have my power setting at max right here, which is giving me that 865 velocity. I played a little bit with it. I noticed a lot of people were shooting it right around the 3 or 4 mark. That was on 22 caliber specifically. I found that with my 25 caliber, max seems to be the best for getting my velocity that I want. The beautiful thing about this power wheel right here is if you're shooting in an environment which requires you to have less power on the gun, you can dial it all the way down to minimum. And let's say you wanted to take a really close 15-yard shot on a bird, like a dove, inside of a barn or something like that. You can do that without having a pass-through shot and without causing damage to the inside of the barn, which is really nice. I really like that feature. However, you can also dial it up and take those longer shots like I like to do, out at 130 yards sometimes. And if you watched any of my other videos, you've seen me take some of those longer shots on prairie dogs. And the gun does a great job at putting those animals down, even at that longer range. So that pretty much covers all the specs of the gun. Now we're going to move down to the range and do our accuracy test at 50 yards. So we do have some pretty significant crosswinds coming from the left to right. So I'm going to have to be holding probably a good mil dot off to the left side. Alright guys, so I have here this group that we just shot at 50 yards out in those sporadic winds. And those winds were changing quite a bit. Throughout the course of those shots at one point I was holding a mil to the left, and then the next shot I would be holding half a mil to the right. So the winds were pretty sporadic, it was difficult to read them, but we managed to get a pretty decent group here. I actually ended up taking 6 shots there instead of 5. And as you can see right here, it is just barely an inch. It is right at that inch mark. And in those conditions, I'm fairly happy with that group. Obviously, this rifle is capable of shooting much better than this in better conditions. You know, I've shot a half-inch group or sub-half-inch group at 50 yards before with this rifle. And actually, if you look here, you can see this group. This is our side-end group. So it shot here, here, and then we started grouping right here. So that's pretty consistent, upper right, upper right. So having just got a 0 with this scope on the rifle, and with these more difficult windy conditions, I'm pretty happy with these results. So as you guys saw, this rifle did a pretty great job at buffing the wind, especially with this 25 caliber and with the Smooth Twist FX barrel. If you take a look at any of my earlier videos, you'll see that this rifle does a great job at reaching out at some of those longer ranges and anchoring some small varmints. The 480cc carbon fiber bottle, which is fully removable, gives an incredibly high shot count, and the 3 ways to adjust the gun give a lot of versatility to an experienced shooter who knows exactly what they want out of their weapon to modify it to their standards. Overall, I think this is the most versatile pre-charged pneumatic air rifle on the market right now. Although its price range is a little bit higher than its competitors, it gives you a lot more to work with, and you get what you pay for when you put the money down on this gun. It really does its job well, and it's a blast to shoot. It's just the most fun gun that I have in my arsenal to pull out of the case and just go into the field and start shooting. I know it's always going to be on its mark. I'm never going to have to worry about if I have a bad batch of pellets with this gun, or if for some reason I'm not being consistent with my regulator or something like that. You just don't have those type of problems when you buy a weapon of this quality. So if this review helped you out in any way, consider subscribing. If you have any recommendations for any videos that you'd like to see in the future, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and go ahead and hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. Thanks guys, see you in the next one.